The sun had barely risen over the sleepy town of Aitoro when Funk tied her worn-out school sandals and stepped into the orange dust that covered the narrow streets. The smell of wet firewood, the crowing of distant roosters, and the rhythm of morning prayers floated through the air. It was another school day, another chance for her dreams to breathe. Funk was 16, slim, and dark-skinned, with eyes that carried both innocence and determination. She was the kind of girl people described as quiet but sharp. Her mind worked faster than her tongue. Whenever her teachers asked a question, her hand shot up before her classmates even finished thinking. She loved learning, not because anyone forced her to, but because, deep down, she believed that knowledge was her only ticket out of poverty. Her parents, Baba and Mama Funk, were farmers, the kind who woke up before dawn and returned home after sunset. Their fingers were cracked, their feet calloused, but they carried hope like a lamp that refused to die. Every harvest season, Baba Funk would set aside a small portion of his earnings just to pay her school fees. Sometimes, when the crops failed, he sold a goat. Other times, Mama Funk would sell pap and akara by the roadside, smiling at customers while her eyes burned from the smoke. "Funk, my daughter," Mama Funk would say every morning, adjusting her wrapper. "Make sure you read your book well. Now you go change our story. Education go carry you go where your papa and I never reach." Funk would smile shyly and nod. "Yes, Mama. I will make you proud." And she meant it. Every evening, after school, while other children played 10-10 or football in the dusty field, Funk sat under the mango tree beside their small house, her book spread before her. Sometimes, she read by the dim glow of a lantern, battling mosquitoes that hummed around her ears. She dreamed big, of becoming an engineer one day. She imagined herself in a shiny office in Lagos, signing documents, helping her parents move into a proper house with tiles and glass windows. It was those dreams that made her endure the long walks to school and the teasing from other girls who called her ethical. But life, as she would later learn, doesn't always reward innocence, sometimes, it tests it. Mr. Shola was the new mathematics teacher at Aitoro Community Secondary School, young, confident, and stylish in a way that made even the male teachers take notice. He had come from Ibadan a few months earlier, with a reputation for brilliance and a voice that commanded attention. To the students, he was a mix of mystery and admiration. His handwriting was flawless, his calculations smooth, his teaching method sharp and modern. When he spoke, the class went silent, not out of fear, but fascination. "Mathematics is not hard," he would say, smiling as he tore the piece of chalk between his fingers. "It's like music. Once you find the rhythm, everything begins to dance." Funk found that rhythm in his class. She loved how numbers came alive when he explained them. For the first time, she began to understand equations that once scared her. Her performance improved so fast that even the head teacher noticed. "Oh, Funk, you're doing well," he said one morning during assembly. "Keep it up. We need more girls like you in science." She smiled shyly. Mr. Shola clapped from the side, pride flashing across his face. But behind that charming smile was a darkness no one could see, not even Funk. Mr. Shola had a reputation that whispered through the staff room walls. Some said he was too close to his female students. Others said he was just friendly. But like most rumors, they floated in silence and died before reaching the principal's ears. He lived alone in a small rented room not far from the school, a place where the sound of the radio was often louder than his conscience. When he noticed Funk, it wasn't just her intelligence that caught his attention, it was her simplicity. The way she tucked her books neatly, the way she always greeted respectfully, and the innocence in her eyes. He began to notice her more often, even when she didn't notice him. After class, he would call her to solve questions on the board. "Funk, come and try this one," he'd say. Her classmates would cheer, whispering as she walked forward, her heart pounding. Sometimes, she got it right. Other times, he'd correct her gently, his hand brushing against hers as he pointed to the chalkboard. She thought nothing of it. After all, he was her teacher, her mentor, the man who made mathematics make sense. One afternoon, he approached her after class. "Funk, you're doing very well," he said, smiling. "You have a gift for numbers. I think you can become an engineer someday." Her eyes widened. "Really, sir?" "Yes," he replied. "But you need extra coaching to perfect your skills. If you like, I can teach you after school hours. Free of charge." Free. The word sounded like a blessing to her ears. Her parents could barely afford her textbooks, let alone private lessons. She thanked him repeatedly, unaware that this was the beginning of a dangerous equation she would never be able to solve. When she told her parents about it, they were overjoyed. "Oh, that's good, oh," Baba Funk said, smiling proudly. "God bless that man. Not every teacher will take such interest in their student. Make sure you respect him, Funk." "Yes, Papa," she replied. So, every Tuesday and Thursday evening, she stayed behind after school, waiting for Mr. Shola in the empty classroom. The air always smelled of chalk dust and old wood. He would sit beside her, their heads close together over the same notebook. At first, it was purely academic, formulas, equations, graphs. She liked the way he explained things with patience, how he laughed when she made mistakes. He made her believe she could conquer anything. But as the weeks went by, something subtle began to change. His compliments became personal. "You have a beautiful smile, Funk. Your handwriting is lovely, like your heart. You're special. Not every girl is like you." She would blush, unsure how to respond. He noticed that too, and pushed further. By the time the term was ending, Funk had become his favorite student. The other teachers noticed. Her classmates whispered. But Funk didn't see what they saw. In her mind, he was only helping her achieve her dream. The man behind the chalkboard had found his next victim, and Funk, the girl with dreams too pure for this world, had no idea that her biggest blessing was about to become her deepest wound. The harmattan breeze swept softly through Aitoro as the school bell rang for closing. Most students rushed out, their laughter echoing through the dusty compound. But Funk remained seated, arranging her notes neatly into a worn-out school bag. She wasn't in a hurry to leave. Tuesdays and Thursdays had become special, her lesson days with Mr. Shola. She always made sure her uniform was ironed, her books clean, her handwriting neat. In her young mind, this was how serious students behaved, disciplined, focused, ready to learn. When her classmates teased her, calling her teacher's pet, she only smiled. Let them talk, she thought. One day, she would show them that focus brings success. Mr. Shola would arrive at the empty classroom with a smile and a bottle of soft drink. "Funk, take this. You've been working hard," he'd say. At first, she refused politely, but he would insist until she accepted. Then he'd sit close beside her, sometimes too close, and guide her through the numbers. "Now, if x equals 2y, what's the value of y when x is 8, he asked one evening. Funk wrote quickly, eager to impress. "Y is 4, sir." He smiled. "Brilliant girl. You go far in life." Those words were like music to her ears. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not even her father. Each compliment sank deep into her heart, planting a trust so strong that even her mother noticed. "Funk, this your teacher really likes you, oh," Mama Funk said one night, as she stirred the pot of yudu soup. "Yes, Mama. He's very kind. He even gives me drinks after lesson." Mama smiled. "Oh, God bless him. Some teachers don't care at all." So, when Funk stayed longer after school, nobody worried. When she came home tired, they assumed she was working hard. When she smiled at her books, they believed success was close. No one saw the cracks forming beneath her innocence. Weeks turned into months. Mr. Shola became more than a teacher, he became someone she trusted completely. When she had personal worries, she talked to him. When her father fell ill, he even gave her 2,000 Nigerian nairas to buy medicine. "You're like my daughter," he told her one afternoon, his tone soft and fatherly. "I just want you to succeed." She smiled gratefully. "Thank you, sir. You've done more for me than anyone else." He chuckled. "You deserve it, Funk. You're special." Each word blurred the line between teacher and friend. Each act of kindness tied her tighter to his control. Other teachers began to notice. "Mr. Shola, that girl, Funk, she's always with you," one of them teased. He laughed it off. "Oh, leave me, oh. She's just my best student." The laughter faded, and with it, the last chance for anyone to see the storm coming. After school hours. It was a Thursday evening, and the sun had begun to set behind the tall mango trees. The school was almost empty, only the faint echo of brooms sweeping corridors. Funk sat in the classroom, her exercise book open, solving an equation he had given her earlier. Mr. Shola was by the window, looking out, his expression unreadable. "Sir, I'm done," she said, smiling proudly. He turned, his gaze lingering a little too long. "You're a fast learner, Funk. You make teaching enjoyable." She giggled softly. "Thank you, sir." He walked toward her slowly, the air suddenly heavy. He leaned over her shoulder to check her walk, his hand brushing hers. Her heart skipped. He didn't move away. "Sir," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. He smiled, a calm, practiced smile. "Relax, Funk. You're safe." But that evening, she wasn't. What happened next was something she couldn't fully understand, only that it left her shaken, confused, and silent. The classroom that once felt like a safe space now felt like a trap. The sound of chalk scratching the board had always meant learning, now, it echoed like betrayal. When it was over, she stood motionless. Her notebook had fallen to the floor. The air smelled of dust and shame. "Don't tell anyone," he whispered, straightening his shirt. "You know how people talk. You're a smart girl. You'll understand." She nodded weakly, tears rolling down her face, though she didn't even realize she was crying. As she walked home, the streetlights flickered faintly. The town's familiar noises, the shouting traders, the honking buses, sounded distant. She felt like she was moving through another world, one that had stolen her laughter and left her hollow. That night, Funk couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the sound of her mother snoring in the next room. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, smiling, patient, trustworthy, until it twisted into something else. She wanted to speak, but the words refused to come. How could she explain something she barely understood? How could she tell her parents that the man they respected had taken something she could never get back? So, she kept quiet. At school, she acted normal. She smiled when people spoke to her, answered questions in class, and even greeted Mr. Shola like nothing had happened. But inside, something had died, her confidence, her innocence, her sense of safety. The classroom became a battlefield between her memory and her mask. And Mr. Shola. He continued teaching like nothing had changed, still charming, still respected, still trusted. He even gave a speech one morning during assembly about discipline and morality. The irony stung like pepper in her wounds. Funk's silence grew heavier with each passing day. Her books no longer excited her. Her dreams of becoming an engineer began to fade like chalk washed off a board. She had entered that classroom to learn mathematics. The harmattan dust had returned, floating like a pale veil over Itoro Secondary School. Students hurried along the corridor, their laughter echoing off cracked walls, their sandals scraping the cement floor. But in the middle of all the noise, there was one voice missing, Funk's. She no longer joined in class jokes. She no longer smiled at anyone. Even her best friend, Tosin, noticed. Funk, what's wrong? Tosin asked one afternoon as they ate akara under the mango tree. Funk shook her head. Nothing. I'm just tired. But her eyes told another story, the kind of tiredness that sleep could never cure. She had stopped raising her hand in class, stopped answering questions. The teacher she once admired had become her biggest fear. Every time she heard Mr. Shola's voice, her heart raced. Every time his footsteps echoed near the classroom door, her stomach tightened. Mr. Shola, however, acted as if nothing had happened. He smiled. He joked. He continued teaching with his usual confidence. Sometimes, he even called her to the board again, like before. She obeyed, but her hands trembled as she held the chalk. Funk, concentrate, he would say, pretending to be a strict mentor. Yes, sir, she'd whisper, forcing herself to stay still while her classmates giggled softly behind her back. Soon, the whispers began. Whispers in the corridor. At first, it started as small talk, two students gossiping during break. Have you noticed Funk and Mr. Shola? One asked. I've seen it too. She always stays behind after school. OBO. And that man likes to smile too much when she's around. By the end of the week, the rumor had become wildfire. In the canteen. In the staff room. Even among the parents who gathered by the school gate. Oh, that teacher and that girl are too close, one of the food sellers said. I hope it's not what I'm thinking. Funk heard them sometimes, the giggles, the whispers, the pointing fingers. Each word was like a stone thrown at her chest. She wanted to scream that they didn't know the truth, that she wasn't who they thought she was. But she couldn't. Because if she spoke, the truth would destroy her family. So she kept quiet, hoping silence would protect her. But silence, sometimes, is what destroys you the most. The secret she couldn't hide. It started with morning sickness. At first, she thought it was malaria. She felt dizzy, weak, and easily tired. Then came the nausea. The smell of beans, soap, even chalk made her stomach turn. When her uniform began to tighten, she knew something was wrong. One Saturday morning, she went to the chemist shop at the edge of the village. The woman behind the counter looked at her suspiciously. Oh, Funk, you dey sick? Yes, ma. I just need something for fever. The woman smiled faintly, then looked at her closely. You sure say no fever? That look, that long, knowing look, was enough to make Funk's knees tremble. That night, she cried silently under her thin blanket. Her mother heard her sobbing and came in. Funk, what is it? Nothing, Mama, she lied, wiping her face quickly. But 2 weeks later, when her stomach began to swell slightly, there was no hiding anymore. Her mother noticed first. Then her father. Then the neighbors. The moment her world collapsed. The night her father found out, the entire compound could hear his voice. Funk. Funk. Who did this to you? She stood there, trembling, unable to speak. Her mother held her head, crying. Oh, my daughter. After all our prayers and sacrifices. Who is responsible? When she finally whispered the name, Mr. Shola, silence fell like thunder. Baba Funk's face changed. He dropped into a chair, his breathing heavy. Your teacher. The one we trusted. Her mother screamed. Yezu. That man we were thanking every day. The neighbors gathered outside, listening, whispering, shaking their heads. By morning, the story had spread through the entire town. In the market, women discussed it between sales. At the barber shop, men debated it loudly. Some pitied her. Some blamed her. Girls of nowadays, no shame again, one woman said. But she's just a child, another replied softly. Child co. She knew what she was doing, the first woman snapped. No one really knew the truth, and those who did pretended not to. Her family's anger, confusion, and shame. Her father couldn't go to the farm for days. Every time he stepped outside, people stared. Some offered pity, others mockery. Mama Funke stopped going to church for a while. She couldn't stand the gossip. They didn't know who to blame, the teacher who betrayed their trust, or the daughter they had raised to be obedient. At night, her parents argued. Baba Funke wanted to confront Mr. Shola. Mama begged him not to, afraid of disgrace, afraid the school would deny everything. Funke sat quietly in her room, her hands over her belly, tears falling endlessly. She remembered how it all started, a simple act of kindness, a bottle of soft drink, a promise of free lessons. She had gone there to learn. She had come back broken. The next morning, when she returned to school, everything felt different. The students looked at her as though she carried shame in her shadow. Teachers whispered behind their files. Even Mr. Shola avoided her eyes, but his face showed no fear, no guilt, only arrogance. He still walked the corridors like a respected man. He still greeted other teachers with confidence. He still smiled in class. But Funke knew the truth that now lived inside her, growing quietly with every heartbeat. In a town where rumors walk faster than truth, the victim often carries the blame. Funke's life had changed forever. Her parents' pride had turned into pain. And the girl who once dreamed of becoming an engineer now woke each morning wishing she could erase herself from the world's memory. The morning sun rose over Aitoro Secondary School like it always did, bright, merciless, and indifferent. But that day, the school compound carried a strange silence. Students gathered in small clusters, whispering and glancing toward the principal's office. Inside, Funke sat on a wooden chair, her eyes swollen from crying. Her parents sat beside her, tense and humiliated. Across from them was the principal, Mrs. Ogonlana, a stout woman with tired eyes and a permanent frown. Mr. and Mrs. Alabi, she began, clearing her throat. This matter has brought great embarrassment to our school. We cannot allow such a scandal to continue. Funke's mother leaned forward. Madam, our daughter is the victim. She didn't bring this upon herself. Mrs. Ogonlana sighed. We understand, but the reputation of this institution is at stake. Parents are already complaining. The board has decided she should stay at home until things calm down. Funke's father's voice trembled. You mean she is being suspended? Temporarily, the principal said quickly. Until we sort out the situation. Funke looked up slowly. So, I'm the one being punished, she asked in a faint voice. No one answered. The principal adjusted her glasses and looked away. Outside the office, as they walked through the school gate, the stairs followed them like shadows. Some students whispered, "That's her." Others giggled cruelly. A few pitied her, but no one spoke up. The girl who once stood proudly during morning assembly was now walking home with her head bowed, carrying shame that was never hers to bear. That evening, her father sat in silence, his hands folded between his knees. I should have gone to the police, he muttered. That man destroyed my child. Mama Funke shook her head. And who will believe us? He is a teacher, respected, educated. They will say our daughter seduced him. Her voice broke. How do we fight such power? Meanwhile, in the same small town, Mr. Shola was still teaching. Still laughing. Still respected. When neighbors asked him about the story, he smiled. Oh, my people, you know how these young girls behave nowadays. She wanted to be close to me. I warned her. He painted himself as the victim, a man of integrity falsely accused by a foolish student. And the town, hungry for gossip but blind to truth, believed him. He's a good man, they said. She must have tempted him. Girls of nowadays no get home training. Even the teachers in the staff room kept their distance from the issue. None wanted trouble. None wanted their name in the news. So they stayed silent. And in that silence, Funke suffered alone. The days turned into weeks. Funke stayed at home, watching other students in their uniforms pass by her window every morning. Her textbooks gathered dust. Her dreams slowly withered. Sometimes, she would walk to the backyard, look up at the sky, and whisper, "God, why me?" At night, she heard her parents arguing about money, about shame, about the baby that was coming. One night, she overheard her mother crying, "Who will marry her now?" And that single sentence shattered her heart completely. The same people who had once praised her intelligence now looked at her like a curse. It was as if the world had agreed that her pain was her fault. Then one afternoon, when the sun hung low and the harmattan breeze had returned, a woman came knocking at their gate. She introduced herself as Auntie Grace, a reporter from the City Herald. She had heard about Funke's story from a youth corps member who once taught at the school. "I want to hear from her," Auntie Grace said gently. "I want to tell her story, the real story." Funke's parents were hesitant. "What if they twist it again?" her father asked. But Auntie Grace's eyes were kind, her voice calm. "Silence protects no one. You've been silent for too long." That night, she sat with Funke under the flickering light of a kerosene lantern. "Tell me everything," she said softly. For the first time, Funke spoke freely. She told her about the first lesson, the compliments, the manipulations, and the night she lost everything. Auntie Grace listened without interrupting, taking notes with quiet care. When Funke finished, tears filled the woman's eyes. "You're brave, my dear," she whispered. "You're not the one who should be hiding." 2 weeks later, a bold headline appeared in the City Herald. "Student impregnated by teacher, a town silence and a girl's cry for justice." The story spread fast. For the first time, people started talking, really talking. Human rights groups reached out. A small NGO from Lagos promised legal help. The radio stations picked it up. Suddenly, the same townspeople who had whispered behind closed doors were now pretending they'd always been on Funke's side. But Mr. Shola. He was furious. He called it fake news. He threatened to sue the newspaper. He told everyone Funke's family wanted money. When the school board finally invited him for questioning, he arrived wearing a crisp white shirt, polished shoes, and his usual arrogance. "I am innocent," he said, smiling confidently. "There is no proof." And the system, weak, slow, and often blind, seemed to agree. Without DNA tests, without witnesses, without legal support, the case began to fade like smoke in the wind. He continued teaching, transferred quietly to another school in a nearby town. Funke never saw him again, but sometimes, she dreamt of that day in the office, the look on his face, the calmness of his voice, the evil hidden behind his smile. The town moved on. People forgot. Life continued. But Funke didn't forget. Every time she saw a girl in uniform walking home from school, she felt a deep ache in her chest. Not just for herself, but for every girl who would one day face the same monster in a different form. In a world where silence protects the guilty, one voice can still shake the walls. Auntie Grace's article didn't change everything, but it lit a spark. Other stories began to surface. Other girls began to speak. And though justice was delayed, something powerful had begun: awareness, courage, resistance. 2 years had passed since the scandal that tore Funke's world apart. The baby, a beautiful boy she named Ahmed, meaning "my joy has come," had become her light in the darkness. But life hadn't been easy. Her father still walked with his shoulders bent, burdened by unspoken shame. Her mother's laughter had become rare. Some neighbors still whispered when they saw her, their eyes filled with that pity that stings more than insult. Still, Funk refused to give up. One evening, while sitting outside and watching Ahmad play with sand, she said quietly to her mother, "Mama, I want to go back to school." Her mother looked at her, surprised. "After everything?" Funk nodded. "Yes. I may have lost my way once, but I can't let that be the end of my story." It took courage and help. Auntie Grace, the journalist who once told her story, stepped in again. She helped Funk apply for a scholarship offered by an NGO that supported teenage mothers. When the acceptance letter came, Funk cried tears she hadn't cried since the day her world collapsed. Back in class, things were different. She wasn't the same girl who once giggled with friends or hid behind her notebooks. She now sat in the front row, focused, determined. During break, some students whispered, but she no longer cared. She wasn't there to please anyone. She was there to rewrite her future. Outside of school hours, she joined a women's empowerment group that taught tailoring, beadmaking, and public speaking. She began sharing her story, carefully, courageously, to young girls in her community. Her first talk was at a local church. She stood before a hall filled with teenage girls, her voice trembling at first. "I was once like you," she began, "a girl who trusted too easily. I wanted to learn, to succeed. But someone I trusted took advantage of that trust." The hall went silent. She took a deep breath. "What happened to me could happen to anyone, unless we learn to speak up, set boundaries, and know our worth." From that day, she wasn't just Funk the victim. She became Funk the voice. Slowly, Funk began to heal, not by forgetting, but by using her story to light the path for others. She partnered with Auntie Grace's NGO to visit schools, where she spoke to girls about self-worth, confidence, and consent. She taught them that no is not disrespect. That silence is not agreement. That respect must go both ways. Some teachers frowned at her boldness. Some parents said she was spoiling the girls. But many others listened. And for every young girl who walked up to her after a speech to whisper, "Auntie, thank you. I've been through the same thing," Funk knew her pain had found purpose. Years later, as Funk watched Ahmad run into her arms after school, she often thought of her old mathematics teacher, the man who destroyed her innocence. But instead of bitterness, she felt something different, release. Healing, she had learned, was not a straight line. It was like an equation, complicated, painful, sometimes unsolvable. But with patience and courage, it always finds balance. Forgiveness didn't mean she forgot what happened. It meant she refused to let it define her. She forgave herself for trusting. She forgave her parents for not understanding. And slowly, she even forgave him not for his sake, but for hers. She had lost her innocence, her dreams, her peace. But she had found her strength, her purpose, and her voice. And that, to her, was victory. In the years that followed, Funk's story became more than a memory. It became a message. Her life inspired a nationwide campaign, "Protect Our Daughters." Auntie Grace continued her journalism. NGOs took the fight to schools. Some laws began to change. But in many small towns like Aitoro, the silence still lingered. And so, the message must be repeated, again and again, until every parent, every teacher, and every school understands. When those meant to protect become predators, silence is the real enemy. To parents, teach your sons respect before teaching your daughters shame. Listen when a child speaks, even if her voice trembles. To teachers, you are builders of destinies, not destroyers of innocence. Your power is sacred, never abuse it. To schools, Create systems that protect, not silence. A girl should never fear the walls meant to educate her. And to every girl, everywhere, you are not your past. You are not your pain. You are power wrapped in grace. Justice may delay, but truth never dies. And from every wound, a voice can rise, strong enough to change the world.